much earlier you mentioned about the very strong Chinese support base for the SUPP and the multiracial factor. So can you also explain to me why or how is the SUPP or the GPS able to actually block the DAP from making inroads into the state?
Oh, you are all right. This is a whole range of small questions
because,
there.
just a second. Because if you look at DAP in West Malaysia, they make inroads in the urban areas where there's Chinese, where Chinese are about like 40%. Those are the seats that DAP they target those seats and they actually win those seats. That's why now DAP is the single largest party in parliament, right? Although it's part of the unity government. So, but it seems that only in this state they failed very very badly. So why do you think SUPP and GPS are able to block?
You said DAP in this state in Sarawak
failed. I mean, they
failed badly.
Failed badly. They performed badly in elections.
In which election? Sorry, recent election.
In the recent elections. Because the Chinese here they support SUPP instead of
I see.
DAP.
All right. How should I approach this one? Maybe I should give some historical understanding to this one. Otherwise, we'll be taking things out of context. As I said, Sarawak SUPP started the first party, multiracial, 1959. Of course, then we all understand there is a urban and rural or suburban, and then we can see the rural are mostly our Bumiputras or our natives. Then the urban areas like towns and then there were no cities. Today we have many cities. Towns after towns, suburban towns and urban towns are all mostly populated by Chinese, see, which is about more than 20%. See, so that's where it is, and of course development and even the Western regime, especially the colonial days, 1946 to 1963, then the development mostly centered on the urban areas, administrative centers, and of course there are certain projects in the rural areas, right? So this cemented a political scenario whereby SUPP naturally inclined to develop with urbanization or urbanism, or you can say urban development, town development. So they're very much. Of course, we don't forget that a lot of Chinese are in the rural areas as farmers, especially the Hakkas. So this thing, as we see it, SUPP gain grounds through urban areas. Okay, urban areas. This is happening even up to today, where DAP as well as SUPP, Chinese-based parties, both are multiracial, multi-party, multicultural party, including DAP, but both of them are mainly anchored on urban towns. Okay, so and Chinese support naturally because, as I said, Chinese is in towns. Okay, so all these bring a viewpoint to us that they are fighting for struggling for power. Actually, to me, it's a very, very peaceful and normal type of political process among the Chinese DAP, SUP in the cities, in the town. Right? So it's the same democratic process. Whoever gains the heart of the people, especially the Chinese in town, Kuching, Miri, Cebu, Bintulu, Limbang, all these big cities, big towns of Chinese majority area, and of course different small rural areas as well. If they win their hearts, whoever win their hearts, whether it's DAP or SUPP, they will gain people's support. Then people will choose them as their state representative, in the our assembly, the Sarawak assembly. So this is normal political process. It's just that how big is the quarrel differences, right? That's an issue when in 1969, later on 1974, I think it was 1974 or 75, DAP came in. So DAP was never here. SUPP since independence, 1959, independence, 1963 up to 69, and well after 1969, the racial riot, 1969, in 1974 I think it was, then they came in later, okay. When they came in, of course, then the family will have a bigger challenge, it's normal. But again, I see that as a good point also, because if either party did not do well or did not please the people or bring development to the people, then of course nobody will choose you, okay. As it is, there is up and down challenges for DAP as well as UPP. Both have wins and gains and loss at different times, okay. We can see that. I think I don't want to elaborate further because that would take a long time. For different, each consider like Padungan itself, there is already up and down, okay? And in Bintulu as well, Kuching, Bandar Kuching, or different places, and even as far as Bau, where Chinese was there, and so on and so on. There were political struggle, changes, and people's eyes are able to see who can do their best, okay? Who can do, who can help the Chinese as we then they will choose them. That's the final point. Chinese was entered here in 1900s. One of the main person is which we can understand is Ong Yu Hai. Ong Yu Hai, this guy bring in when he was a traditionalist. He is a pro-Brooks leader, Chinese leader. Later on, together with other people, things changed. Then they join the government as a minister, as a politician. So this as Kapitan also appointed by government. Later on, we can see that in later time, we become part of the family when our brothers, Bumiputras, the natives, rise in terms of politically, rise economically as well. So all these bring about a change in, we wouldn't say ideology, but it's in terms of political awareness. See, so one of the challenges of politics is in our society is in terms of delivering of projects and development to the Chinese as well as other native people. But then you have, of course, in the modern society and our system, our structure, we have things like corruption, and things like problem like differences, strong differences. So in terms of development, allocation of resources, and so on. So all these things bring about another big challenge, a big change to the Chinese society. So SUPP likewise gone through this. DAP likewise gone through it. It all depends on the era or the moment whereby the issues at hand, for example, if the issues is about independence, it was 1963, and then later on corruption, our system, or economic system, it was colonialism, etc. Right. Later on, we have proper, more well-adjusted, well-governmented assemblies, allocations, and etc. We have coalition, and then things are better. Of course, these are political process. So all this brings about a family feud among DAP and so on. To today, DAP has been in the federal, doing very well, and Sarawak also cooperate with them. But in Sarawak itself, DAP is still the opposition until maybe the next election. We don't know. We still work together, but we are like we have you mind your business. We do our own, but both are for the good of Sarawak. They're playing the different roles.
So this point that you make actually was a question that I wrote down, and I was about to ask you about why DAP is in the opposition in Sarawak, and then the GPS and DAP, they are both in the unity government of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Because it's quite strange. If you look at the other states of especially in West Malaysia, you see that those parties that are in the federal government, in the unity government, in the state level, they are also they also join the government in the state. But here's different. You see that DAP sits in the opposition benches in Sarawak, but the GPS and DAP are sitting together in the government benches in the federation.
In Malaysia, we have 13 states. Each state has their own constitution. Okay, in other words, each state has their own assembly. So Sarawak, likewise, we have our own assembly. Our state election was held 4 years, 4 years per term for them, 5 years per term. So more or less, we have our state election every 5 years. Likewise, federal, they have 5 years per term. They also have it 5 years or earlier, have their parliamentary election, right? You must know that. But our state election, Sarawak election, is held every time. Will be held also at different time as against the parliamentary election. Okay. In other words, Anwar Ibrahim and DAP, when they aligned together the last parliamentary election, that time, of course, it was Sarawak parliamentary seats, but then Sarawak did not held the state election together with the parliamentary election. We must understand that most of the state elections in West Malaysia, Semenanjung, was held concurrently or simultaneously with the parliamentary election.
But now this has changed because in the last federal elections, some of the states.
I understand it's changed. But that is another matter. But as far as Sarawak is concerned, you see, we still state election was held, and it's still in power. See, when we joined when we were still in power, state election is still in power. Abang John under GPS won beautifully, and then comes along parliamentary election, the federal problem, federal election, federal power struggle, as you know it, and then so Sarawak has nothing to do with it, except we are involved because of the parliamentary election seats. Parliamentary seats in Sarawak. So those things like is held here, but in terms of state power, Sarawak itself is still holding it. So until the next election, if things change, DAP maybe GPS accept DAP, we never know. If GPS accepted them, we never know, because GPS in principle accept DAP from West Malaysia, meaning to say the parliamentary seats, we work together with them because we are pro-federal. Okay, so one day we will have a unity government, as you like to put it, in a different sense. So this is a political change.
But do you think there's a chance that really such a thing can ever take place maybe in a few years from now?
You mean DAP joining Sarawak government?
Yeah, maybe we have a DAP minister in the cabinet or
in Sarawak state government.
Sarawak state. Honestly, do you think there's a probability that this can ever?
I think politics, everything is possible.
Everything.
But in my opinion, no. No, because basically, you have two Chinese-based party, SUPP and DAP. So unless these two are happy with each other, merge. Just like the PBB, they were Parti Bumiputra, Parti Panas, they combine together. In other words, the Dayak and the Malay combine, then they form a PBB. Today, if DAP and they form another party, new party, merge, and then they can join in. Because naturally, we all have to concede to the fact that DAP is from West Malaysia. And their ideology, the political struggle is different from Sarawak. So Sarawak would remain themselves unless they merge. Once they merge, there is of course political direction different. They would, I would say, follow Sarawak political ideology lah. Our political ideology. And you talk about Chinese. Chinese, as you know, was involved politics the first day. Actually, they bring in Chinese political ideas from China, Taiwan as well, way back in 19th century and earlier 20th century. So they bring in what we call Sarawak nationalism. And then later on, they bring in Chinese nationalism. Later on, they bring in Sarawak Chinese nationalism. Later on, they merge and absorb themselves into Sarawak nationalism. In other words, Chinese has his character, their political character. So I foresee as a Chinese-based SUPP would not join them unless they take over. And if you look at the earlier history also, there is a big difference, but I think that can forgo. The only party is Lim Chong Yu, Gerakan. It's very close to SUPP from Penang. That one you might like to know. Gerakan very close, is multiracial, almost the same as SUPP. But SUPP then we have to learn from Gerakan. Gerakan collects almost totally in Penang. Lim Chong Yu and Xi Zhigan and Ko Zhi Kun almost disappeared from politics, but still okay lah. Yeah. Singapore has some relation with Sarawak. Singapore, as we all know, is also Chinese based. So this is a very tricky question. For DAP to change, I don't know whether cannot. You see, so SUPP to accept new reality, political reality is also a challenge. So we never know. The only thing I can tell you is if DAP lost everything, lost all the influence in Sarawak, then the political leaders in Sarawak, DAP Sarawak may change, politically. Likewise, if SUP lost everything, it all depends on people. In other words, if SUP in Sarawak lost, they may change. They have to change, because the people wants to change. So eventually, this is a beautiful democratic process that we have inherited from the West. Actually, I would say Negeri Sembilan if you want to look at Malaysia. Okay.
Yeah. So just a few more questions and then
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So
Maybe
how,
we